I don't regularly talk about this. I feel like it's not talked about enough. It's still a really taboo subject, and that's pretty crazy because like 1 in every 160 women experienced what I experienced. It really sucks that it had to be me, but it was, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone else. So I got married in 2015 to my husband. His name is Drew. I will insert a picture of us on our wedding day. About a year later, I found out I was expecting. And everything was great from the minute that I found out. It was awesome. I was so excited. Obviously, he was excited. Our families were really excited, and everything was great. I found out that I was pregnant in January, and I was due 2 days before my birthday. Everything was super normal. I worked right up until the end. Just before my 39-week appointment, I noticed some reduced movement. And my doctor was on vacation. She said that I could wait until she got back to make my appointment, but I called and just made an appointment with one of the other doctors because I was nervous. So my dogs are fighting, if you can hear them. I went to my appointment with the other doctor that is not my doctor, and I told her that I felt concerned, like I wasn't feeling my son. Found out I was having a boy. His name is Abel. I didn't feel like I felt him moving as much as I typically did. And she checked his heartbeat for about 10 seconds-ish. Gus, knock it off. Checked his heartbeat for just a few seconds and said she's seeing accelerations and everything was looking good. And just kind of said he's out of room and you're fine. And you're a first-time mom and you're nervous and whatever. And she told me, like, super, like, condescendingly told me, like, if you're that concerned about it, then you should come back next week and do a non-stress test. So I was like, okay, I am that worried about it. So I went ahead and made the appointment. They didn't have anything open for Monday, so I made the appointment for Tuesday for the non-stress test. And still everything was the same. I was rarely feeling him move. On Monday, I went to work. I hadn't felt him much that whole day. I felt like 1 or 2 small movements right around the same time, right around lunch. I felt nervous, but also just what she said, I just chalked it up to being out of room. And I went home, and this was on my due date. I actually went into labor on my due date. Yeah, and around midnight, my mom was at my house, and my husband, and Maverick, stop. And I called labor and delivery, and I said, I think that I am in official labor. And they were like, great, come on in, blah, blah, blah. I got to labor and delivery, And they were like, okay, we're just gonna hook you up to the machine, and we're gonna hook him up to the machine and monitor him. And when they did, they couldn't find his heartbeat. They tried to find it with the Doppler for a few minutes, and I was freaking out. We never had an issue finding his heartbeat at any doctor's appointments or anything like that. They brought in the ultrasound machine, and they didn't find his heartbeat. So at this point, it hasn't actually occurred to me that I realized that he had died. Like, I understood that. At that point, I didn't know why, and I didn't know what was gonna happen next. Didn't think about the fact that I was still going to have to give birth. For a little while, it didn't actually occur to me. Then when the doctor first was like, so what do you want to do? She said I could go home and wait for him to just come on his own. I could be induced. I could potentially have a C-section, which at first I really wanted, but they told me that it wasn't the best plan, and I listened. After hours of fighting with them, I listened. They gave me like Xanax and Dilaudid mix, and I slept for a few hours, and I woke up, and then it was time to like make a decision. So I decided to let them induce me, and they put the balloon thing in my cervix to help stretch it out. And a few hours later, he was born. And before he was born, my doctor told me that his cause of death wouldn't necessarily be known when he was born. Sometimes it just happens and there's not a real reason. So we may or may not know what happened to him when he was born, but I needed to prepare myself to not know what happened to him until like many, many weeks later. But the reason was very apparent when he was born. The cord, the umbilical cord, his lifeline, the thing that was supposed to keep him alive, was around his neck 7 times. 7. My doctor told me that it was nothing she'd ever seen before. She'd never seen anything like that many times. And I don't know. After that, after he was like actually born, everything else is kind of like a mess. I have amazing friends and family who were there for me and with me through the entire process. And we had a big funeral, and yeah. So that's my story. one of a few stories that I don't share often, but I know that it's not easy, and I know that it's really hard to find other people who have had a similar experience, and so I wanted to make sure that I shared my story. I have a 10-month-old now. Pregnancy after a loss like that is unreal. It's so scary, and it's also so amazing. Like, the moment that Phoenix was born was like, just, I don't even know that I can explain what it felt like. It was just amazing. But I only share this for other people to know that you're not alone. It happens to so many women, and it needs to be talked about. It can't be this big secret, and you can't, like, there was no way, like, if I had a miscarriage, I could have keeping it a secret, you know? But I had a full-term pregnancy. Everybody knew I was pregnant. I had to announce it on social media. I had to, like, call all of my family. Like, I texted my one cousin, and I was like, this is what happened, and I need you to tell everybody because I can't do it. So in that, I realized that suffering in silence is not okay. I talk about him. I don't talk about it a lot, but I talk about him. He was a person. He was, you know, when you have a baby who is born sleeping, stillborn, whatever you want to call it, you don't get a birth certificate. They don't get a social security number. And, like, he's basically just, in the eyes of the government or whatever, he's not even a person. I got a certificate in the mail that is literally called a fetal demise certificate. It's just unfair. It's unfair to me, it's unfair to him. He was a tiny human, and to me, he was everything. And I understand that, like, in the grand scheme of the world, he was a very small part, but to me, he was the whole world. And I don't know if or when I'll post this video. I really want to post the video, but I also feel like I'm a mess talking about it. I'm, like, all over the place. And I also am really worried about negative comments. But anyway, I'm just going to insert a picture of my husband with him somewhere, sometime in this video, probably at the end. That's basically it. I just really felt like I wanted to share that and let people know that they're not alone. There's a couple of YouTubers who have gone through what I've gone through, and I watched their videos, and they really helped me through a really terrible time in my life. Just knowing that I wasn't the only person that this happened to, and that my feelings were normal. Being sad was normal. Obviously it was, but when you're in that situation, it doesn't necessarily feel okay to feel that way. Like, you should, I don't know, like, maybe you're sad for a little bit, but then I got pregnant very soon after, and so it was like, oh, well, that was then and this is now. But that's not really how it works. it was unmeasurable happiness with unmeasurable grief at the same time. And I feel like people don't, even supportive people, not just the people who are telling you should move on or whatever, even the supportive people, like you don't get it unless it happens to you. So I basically just want to make sure that other people know that they're not alone. There's a lot of us, actually. That's it. Thanks for watching. I know this is such a downer video, but it's my life, so I decided that I wanted to share it on the internet, and so here it is.